Hey there! On this episode of What Do You Make of This, I'm going to teach you how to make perfect hard-boiled eggs every time. One of my secrets is plain vinegar. So hard-boiled eggs are one of those things that are easy enough to make, but surprisingly tricky to make well. And if you've cooked hard-boiled eggs a few times, or maybe even a few hundred times, you probably know what I'm talking about. Maybe you finished cooking the eggs and you go to peel them only to find that the peel has stuck to the egg and will not come off. Or you get them peeled, no problem, but then you go to cut them open and either the yolk is undercooked and super runny, or it's really overcooked and it's kind of like rubber and gets this weird green color. I have a few tricks that I like to do as I make hard-boiled eggs that I have found will get me perfect results every single time, and I'm going to show you how I do it. So we're going to start with just everything nice and cold. Cold pan, cold water, cold eggs. Into this pan, I am going to go with all of my eggs. I'm making 5 eggs today, but the beauty of making hard-boiled eggs is it's really a method. So if you want to make 12 eggs, you make 12. If you want to make 2 eggs, make 2 eggs. This will all still apply. We'll get that bowl out of the way. So to these eggs, I am going to cover them with cold water. So I'm just going to start pouring. And I am going to stop when the eggs are completely covered with water. This will be different depending on how many eggs you're using, on how big your pot is, so just keep the water coming. And you want to go until they're pretty much completely covered. If there is a little bit of egg bobbing around on the surface, that's actually okay because as they cook, they'll kind of turn themselves naturally. But if you've got any more than just teeny tiny little islands of eggshell peeking out, put a little extra water in just for some insurance. We'll get that picture out of the way. And so at this point, you're pretty much like, yes, hard-boiled eggs, I get it. But okay, so here's the secret. Plain vinegar. You can use any vinegar that you have in your cupboard. Maybe now is not the time for the aged balsamic vinegar, but I am using just plain white vinegar, the cheapest stuff they make. I've also done apple cider vinegar if it's all I've got, red wine vinegar. The red wine vinegar, by the way, if you're cooking white eggs, it will actually stain them kind of a purpley color, so be aware of that. But as long as you're not dyeing Easter eggs, it'll work just fine. Don't worry about it. We'll get that out of the way. So what the vinegar is going to do is, as I was mentioning earlier, if you go to peel your eggs and you find that this shell just will not come off the egg, it's because in between the shell and the egg white, there's this thin little membrane. And that can be very clingy, especially as it cooks. It can kind of set and stick to the egg white. So what the vinegar does is it's actually going to acidulate the water. That acid is going to permeate through the eggshell and actually help to break down that membrane, which makes it less likely to cling, which makes it a lot easier to peel your eggs. I've heard of other methods. Some people say to use salt, some people say to use baking soda. I have tried them all. I have had the most success with vinegar, so I encourage you, if you've never done vinegar, try it. It's almost guaranteed to change your mind. So at this point, this is pretty much it. We've got our water, we've got our vinegar, we've got our eggs. Everything is cold. So I am just going to turn on my stove and I'm going to bring everything up to a boil. So the reason we're starting with everything cold is because everything now is going to come to the same temperature at the same time. As the water heats, the eggs are going to start to heat, and that way you've got a really consistent baseline, basically, as you're cooking this, so that you know exactly when to do each stage, and that's going to make sure those yolks in the very center are going to come out perfect. So we're just going to give this a few minutes and we're going to wait for that water to come to a boil. Okay, so our water is coming to a gentle boil. What we're seeing right now is just some larger bubbles now starting to come to the surface. When you're at that simmer stage, it's just teeny tiny bubbles, but once you've got some really good movement happening on the surface, that's that boiling stage that we're looking for. So what's going to happen next is I'm actually going to turn off the heat. I'm going to put a lid on this pot and I'm going to move it onto a cold burner. What we're doing, there's already plenty of heat in that hot water. Enough heat that for the next 10 minutes, it's actually going to continue cooking the eggs. So if you leave it over the stove, this is one of those pitfalls I have found, there's actually still too much heat coming off even if the stove is off. Moving it onto a cold burner helps to kind of reset that, and now the only thing that is cooking the eggs is the water that has already come to a boil. So I've got my little handy egg timer here. I'm just going to set it for 10 minutes, and we're gonna leave that there, and in 10 minutes I will show you how we finish these eggs. Okay, so 10 minutes have gone by and these eggs are done and they are perfect. So I'm just going to get the lid off, and be careful because there's a lot of steam and it's very hot. We'll get that lid out of the way. So while these eggs cooked for 10 minutes, I just set up an ice bath. So this is just a bowl with ice water in it. And I am going to fish out these eggs. I'm going to use a slotted spoon because they're very, very hot right now, and just move them out of the hot water and into the bowl. So what this ice water is going to do is, right now, like I had said, these eggs are cooked, they are perfect. We want to stop them right there. So by submerging the eggs into very cold water like this, it's going to stop that cooking process, and now they're done. It's also going to serve another purpose. So again, coming back to that pesky membrane that can make it really hard to peel your eggs. The eggs have been in the hot water. The membrane is basically pretty relaxed right now. It's been hanging out in a pretty hot jacuzzi this whole time, so it's feeling pretty good. By suddenly plunging everything into this cold water, that membrane is basically going to go ugh and stick to the shell instead of sticking to the egg white, and that's going to make them easier to peel. So how long you want to leave your eggs in the ice bath is really up to you and what you want to use your eggs for. So if you like your eggs hot, maybe you're having them for breakfast, you just want to leave them in there until they're cool enough for you to handle to peel them. If maybe you're putting them into a salad or taking them for lunch later and you want them cold, you can get them as cold as you like, move them into the refrigerator, use them when you're ready. It's totally up to you. We're going to be peeling these right away though, so I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes until it's cool enough for me to easily peel them. Then we will peel them up, we will cut them open, and we'll see how they look. So my eggs are cool enough to handle. It's time for that big reveal. So I'm just going to start by grabbing an egg, and I'm going to crack it on a mat. So a great tip when you're cracking your eggs to peel them, start at the bottom. There's basically a little tiny air pocket here that especially will start to collect as the egg is cooking. So if you start down there, just like that, it's actually going to once again help to loosen that membrane that is the ever pesky problem when you're trying to peel your eggs. Don't stop there though. Once you've cracked it, crack it everywhere. This is not the time to be lazy. You've gone too far. But by doing this, you're going to again really help to loosen that membrane, and it's going to make your eggs a lot easier to peel. Once you have got a complete and total spiderweb pattern all over that egg, do this underwater. If you want to do it under cold running water in your tap, that's a great thing to do. I want you to be able to see what's happening, so I'm just going to do it in the bowl here. But if you peel it underwater and start at the bottom the same way we cracked it, you can kind of help to work that water under that membrane, and you'll see this membrane now starting to kind of peel off a little bit. So start working very gently, and this is kind of the time to be patient as you're working on these eggs. You've gone so far. If you try to rush this all at the last minute, that's when you get, that's when it has that chance to stick and start pulling off the egg white as well as the shell. So work at it a little bit. The first few peels are a little bit tricky, but as you continue to do it, and sorry, it's just taking me a little bit longer because I want to make sure my hands aren't in the way so you can see what's happening. But the more you peel, the easier it's going to be because the water will kind of start to work its way under that membrane, and pretty soon they just start coming off. There we go. Very nice and easy. And anytime you start to feel it stick, just give it another dunk or hold it under the running water again and help that water work its way under the membrane. And that will help to make sure you get a nicely peeled egg, as you can see right here. I'm just going to dry it off because I don't know if you get this, but for me, I cannot stand wet eggs. It kind of grosses me out a little bit. I don't like the feel. I definitely don't like to eat them. So pat them dry. Makes them a little more stable too as you're cutting them up. And then here's that big unveiling. We're going to just cut it right down the middle. And as you can see, a beautiful, perfect, hard-boiled egg, no green, perfectly cooked yolk all the way through. That's the trick. That's how you do it. I'm just going to keep peeling these eggs, and then after that we'll plate them up and I'll show you how they all look. Okay, so I've got all 5 of my eggs peeled. You could certainly just eat them as is, but let's say you wanted to maybe serve them up for a brunch. I've just got a really nice little plate here with some lettuce leaves on it. I'll show you how to do a nice little presentation. So I'm just going to take a few eggs, and for me, I'm going to just follow the curve of my plate and try to make a bit of a circular shape, but really this is up to you. This is your artistic interpretation. You can do it perfectly imperfect. You can fan them out into a beautiful little spoke. Trust your instincts with this. But because I have 10 eggs, I can kind of make a bit of a circular shape here, if the lettuce leaves will allow that. Sometimes the little bumps of the lettuce can make things a little bit tricky, but they can also help to support eggs so that they all stand upright. You just have to play around with it a little bit, but I do love plating. It's your best opportunity to get to really play with your food, and we eat with our eyes first. So if you serve something like this at a breakfast table, how nice does that look, and what a great way to start your day. And here we have perfect hard-boiled eggs. And like I had said earlier, it doesn't matter if you're making 1 egg or a dozen eggs. As long as you follow those steps, they will come out perfect every time. I personally like to make a big batch of eggs every time I cook them so that I can keep them in the fridge for a quick and easy grab-and-go breakfast. As always, this recipe can be found in the description below. Please like and subscribe for more videos. I'm Jessica. Thanks for watching.